Why? The opening was great, and that's it.
I mean, he's not wrong.
The ending is a spit in the face to Indy and his fans. What a wasted opportunity. Helena was insufferable.
Did they clarify how to pronounce it in the review?
You say this is better than Crystal Skull? How? What? When? Where? And why?
Too many questions. I can't answer them all.
Can't answer them all.
That was a 1-star review from IMDb. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Spoilers Intended. We are a podcast about series and films.
Yes, we are.
It's true. It's a true factual statement.
I am your host this week, Andrew, joined as always by Ryan.
Who, what, when, where, why?
And Steven.
I really want to do the answers to those, but I can't remember all the T's. So I'm all hopped up on cold medicine. Let's go.
No sweat.
This week we are talking about the 5th installment in the Indiana Jones franchise, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Mm-hmm. Say that 5 times fast.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Before we start talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, or DOD, as I like to call it.
DOD, Department of Defense.
We are going to talk about other franchises, can be TV shows, books, whatever, movies, that have outlasted their welcome. Not that jump the shark, because we did that with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but ones that have lasted longer than their shelf life.
So basically, they got sequels when they didn't need them.
Yes.
What's the Nolan Batman line? You either go out early enough to be the hero, or you stick around long enough to become the villain.
You either die the villain or die the hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
And I think like there's a lot of franchises that have fit into this.
Oh yeah,
where I
had trouble narrowing it down.
There's a lot. There's a lot that just needed to end when it needed to end.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
You want me to go first?
Sure, why not?
The Terminator movies.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a great
one.
I love the first Terminator. I absolutely love T2. Okay. No, I really have a soft spot for the first Terminator.
The first Terminator's good.
As a child whose parents let him watch violent movies way too early, I saw it before T2 came out. Mm-hmm. And I went in theaters to see T2. And I remember with my parents, I was like, this rules. But like I had already seen the first Terminator several times up until that point. And thought, what a cool idea. Right?
Yeah.
This guy comes back from time. So yeah, have you guys seen the rest of the Terminator movies?
So I've seen T3.
T3, okay.
That's the one that has Claire Danes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've seen T3.
I have not. I've only seen the first 2, and that is it. Because I've
stay that way.
Yeah.
Don't
everything
change.
else after
that.
that.
I will say, T3 is not bad, but only from the lens of once you view what came after it. Like when I first watched T3, I was like, boy, this is not good.
Yeah.
And then I think I watched a little bit of, was it Genesis?
Is that the Dark Fate is the most recent one. Then Salvation was 2009. Then
Salvation
Genesis was
Christian Bale.
Yes.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of Genesis and was like, woof.
Genesis is the worst in my opinion of all of them. So basically, Terminator 3 was, in my opinion, like a cheaper version.
It was almost like a direct to like a Sci-Fi Channel.
It felt
version of
it. It was like halfway between a theatrical release and a straight to DVD release. Is what it felt like.
Because James Cameron was not interested in it, right?
No, because again, the story wraps at the end of T2 with a real nice little bow.
Yep.
Everything's good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so T3, Kristanna Loken plays the Terminator, and she's a sexy, hot Terminator. Like, that's like the twist they try to go with.
Not your dad's
Terminator.
Really? Yeah, this ain't your grandma's Terminator.
Oh, no.
And, of course, Arnold gets brought back in.
Of course he does.
They do all these gymnastics to figure out, like, how he's here, you know.
How and why.
And then after that, you had Terminator Salvation with Christian Bale, which was taking place after, the apocalypse has happened. You see John Connor and all that kind of stuff happening. And it was...
Which, not a terrible concept.
No.
Since, again, like you said, T2 wraps the bow, but you're essentially doing a prequel at this point.
I remember not hating this movie when I saw it in theaters because I was already like, okay, this is going to be a whole different thing.
Different world, yeah.
Because I thought, if you're going to keep telling stories in this universe, don't keep like T2 ended everything so well that like if
Yeah.
you're gonna have to do something, do it after that.
Get me to the time travel part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Like I watched it later after I saw it, in theaters, like on TV or I was like, oof, this is not that good. Like it was very much a movie of its time, like a lot of Browns.
What year did that come out?
2009.
Okay. Because I feel like Christian Bale had kind of a run there of films where you were kind of like, ooh. What was the dragon one?
Oh, Reign of Fire?
Yeah.
Now that one was like 90 something.
Was it? I thought that was early
early.
2000s.
Maybe it was. It was basically before he got famous with the Dark Knight
Right,
stuff,
yeah, it was
though,
before he got big.
Yeah, whereas this was like in the middle of after or whatever. Then Terminator Genesis was like their attempt to like
Yeah, Reign of Fire is 2002.
2002. Okay.
Yeah.
Like reboot things.
Yeah.
And they brought in what's his name? Jai Courtney, I want to say, is a guy in it, and Emilia Clarke, and Arnold's there, and it's just not good. It's just a bad movie. And they again do the same thing where they're trying to like
Do like convoluted like pretzel timelines.
Timelines to explain how like this version of the Arnold Terminator is older.
Yeah.
And like so it's like whatever.
Because they designed the machines to age.
That doesn't make sense.
It makes sense.
Then like when they did Dark Fate, which actually isn't that bad. Really good action scenes in that movie, and the guy that plays the Terminator in that one.
Because that's where they brought Sarah Connor back.
Yeah, Linda Hamilton. Yeah, and like I don't know, that one was fine.
So Linda Hamilton has aged where like she just looks more badass as she gets older.
Right?
Yeah. And so they again explain in that one why Arnold would be older, but they have
she
to
just
basically
looks like she gets harder.
Yeah, she
tougher.
really like
and not that's not in at all a demeaning way.
No,
like man, like she's gained a decade, and I feel even more like she could just beat the crap out of you if she wanted to.
Well, she's got the military hat with those sunglasses, and you're just like, ooh.
She's got that feel of that the old grizzled retired colonel who's seen it all.
Yep,
kind of thing.
I mean, she kind of has at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, that one wasn't that bad, and it kind of basically because Cameron was involved, I think, in as a producer role on that
EP
one
or whatever,
and it basically is like a sequel to T2.
Yeah,
is the way like it retcons all of Genesis didn't happen, T3 didn't happen. It kind of like throws. So have you seen that one?
No, but I've heard that one was pretty good.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's great.
Yeah,
but to me it was definitely better than the other ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've only seen T1 and T2. Maybe check out Dark Fate, but I would skip the rest of them. But so that's my franchise that like T2 wrapped so good. We don't need it. Just let it die.
Yeah.
Like if it had been just those two movies, it would have went down in history as like, wow, what a way to like nail it on a franchise and then get out. But they did not, sadly. What about you, Steven?
Okay, so we mentioned franchises that stuck around too long. It could be movies, it could be TV shows, it could be books. What if I've got a twofer for you?
Okay.
Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, specifically...
the books.
The Hobbit. The Hobbit and onward. Okay. So, the original Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings film trilogy is probably one of the best fantasy adaptations, like, if not just book to movie adaptation.
I would say the best adaptation.
No notes, right?
Yeah.
And like, even at the time, and I remember... At the time, and I was also a little like, oh, they left this out. I would have loved to have seen this. Like, they had to make changes, and make choices. But it's still, when you watch those movies, they still flow really well, and you come out of those films feeling great. Right? Yeah, those are some spectacular.
And there are some CGI graphics that have aged.
Maybe haven't aged as well as they could have, and some choices towards the end of Return of the King where it's like. Why?
Yeah, but, and same thing like with some of like Peter Jackson's like cinematography isn't that great, but that's fine. Like it's totally fine.
It's fine still. You can put on the theatrical release, extended edition anytime, no big deal.
Yeah.
Basically everything onward from that point
is a problem.
Rough.
Yeah.
So I saw the first Hobbit in theaters.
Oh yeah.
And basically spent the whole movie with my jaw progressively getting lower and lower and lower. Like, I'm surprised I didn't like catch flies or something by the end of that film, because it's just like, oh no, oh no, why are we doing this? Like the CGI is terrible.
So I saw it, but I also saw it in high frame rate.
I saw
3D.
The same. I didn't see the 3D,
just the HFR.
But they had the high frame rate, which of course makes everything look like a soap opera.
I went the whole way because I was like, if
they're putting it out there,
if Peter Jackson says that this is how we need to film movies and see them, let me see it. And then I watched it, I was like, this is terrible. So this makes it worse, and it's already bad.
I saw the first film in theaters and said, yeah, I'll wait for these to come out on like TBS or something.
Okay, so I'm like, this is not going to be me coming to the defense of the Hobbit films.
Oh, yeah.
Because
here we go.
At some point, I guarantee we're going to have to review them.
Well,
yes.
Probably.
I might call out sick that day, but go ahead.
But
that doesn't work. I'm sick right now. I'm still here.
So Lord of the Rings, a Paramount, a pillar of fantasy film and adaptation that has existed for 20-something years.
Was
now.
that Paramount Pictures that did that?
And it is phenomenal. And one of the reasons why is because they had almost 2 full years of pre-production before they even turned on a camera.
Yeah, you're coming to the rescue here. I know the circumstances around the Hobbit.
He was laying the tracks in front of the train on the Hobbit.
So one of the reasons why
he's put the train back together on the tracks.
So Del Toro was basically scheduled to.
What a choice!
Yeah,
like Del Toro for a Hobbit film.
Yeah. So essentially, New Line Cinema got cold feet 2 weeks before they were scheduled to do production, and they fired him. Basically, they told Peter Jackson, "You have to come in and fix this."
Which again, for my first reaction to, Del Toro was going to do it. Like, why? I can see why they got cold feet. They have Del Toro, and they're like, "So let me see your notes," and he hands them this whole notebook that looks like something out of a horror film.
Yeah.
Yes,
and it's like, oh,
well, yeah.
And here's the thing, though. Why did you hire Guillermo del Toro?
That's not his kind of film.
To me, I would have killed to see the Guillermo del Toro version of The Hobbit because he was going to keep it to 2 movies.
Can you imagine what the spiders in Mirkwood would look like if Del Toro was
Nightmare Fuel? It'd be awesome. It would rip. This is the problem is that, they got cold feet because they realized
wanted it to be like Lord of the Rings.
And it's like, that's the worst take on trying to do these movies.
And because of that, essentially they had a 2-week lead time for all films because they all had to make them essentially at the same time.
Boom, boom, boom. Yep.
And and then Peter Jackson also wanted to push like 60 frames, like filming and like
I just
CGI
don't understand why
so
that was a thing. I just don't.
So the 48 frame is double
48 frame,
24 because Cameron and Peter Jackson at the time, and I think one other director, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Spielberg.
It wasn't Spielberg.
But it was someone else that was like a big name.
Spielberg is very much, I want it to be 24 frames forever.
Welcome back to the 70s, you animals. I can't remember who it was. It was Cameron, Peter Jackson, and somebody else. I can't remember. But anyways, 48 frames makes the image smoother and gives you way less motion sickness in 3D than 24 frames.
That's great, but they also shouldn't be pushing 3D anyways. It's terrible.
And that's the core of the problem is that they were trying to fix it because they thought 3D is going to be the next big thing.
Yep.
And couldn't see the forest for the trees that like 3D is absolutely not the next best big thing. Like we don't need to fix it. We need to abandon it and move on to other filmmaking technologies.
Mid 2000s is the big problem there because we have this technology.
What an era for choices in filmmaking. Everything's going to be brown and green. We're going to do 48 frames, if not 60 frames. 3D, shaky cam.
Yeah.
But they were like, we need to do 60 frames. Why? Because my shaky cam 3D film makes everyone sick. Maybe don't shoot a 3D film with shaky cam.
Well, it's really because like whenever you have these,
it's art.
You have these studios that want to make money and they like gimmicks and stuff like that, but they
want to jack the price up on the ticket.
Well, they have to get it out of their system. And it took them a decade to get it out.
It's very much so like they have to learn by failing. Like you can't tell these people, hey, that doesn't work. They have to lose a couple $100 million on it.
They have to learn the lesson themselves.
Some consultant in one meeting said the buzzword of a 3D, and then James Cameron went, "My God!"
Imagine, if you will, this beautiful
these blue people I've been dreaming of for years.
Well, now I'll definitely say
that's
this.
How I see it in my mind.
And I know both of you just don't like 3D films. That's totally okay.
Yeah.
But I will say this: that at least James Cameron built his film around 3D
anytime
correctly.
You take a 2D film and convert it to 3D, it's already terrible.
Yes, but he made it for it, and it actually does add to the film, I think.
Of all the movies that I have seen in 3D, it's been Avatar 1 and 2 that actually made me go, oh wow, okay, there's something to this. It still doesn't make me go like, every movie needs this, or that this is a new dimension of...
it does add a little bit.
I see what Andrew's strategy was here, because I said I had a twofer with Lord of the Rings. I was going to hit 2 franchises.
Yeah.
Because I was going to bring up Rings of Power as well.
Okay.
And he was like, hold on, I got to distract from this. Let's talk about other things before I make disparaging comments about Rings of Power.
Oh, so you're taking Rings of Power.
Okay, so no,
but also
I'm not.
Rings of Power exists, and it's in line with what I was saying.
Exactly. Copy and paste everything I said earlier.
All right, so we're going to bring it back
to you.
Yeah, back to me.
Back to me.
Look at your hand. The ball's not there. Look at me. The ball's here.
I'm going to put that on the soundboard. Back to me.
But yeah, so we're going to talk about the 1989 anime Dragon Ball Z.
Okay. Yes.
This had 291 episodes in its full tenure, so 9 full seasons of anime that existed.
Yeah.
And while Akira Toriyama, the original writer for the show, or for the story, he was writing it, and essentially he got to the end of the Cell Saga, if you're familiar with it, which is about 190 something odd episodes into a long running TV show, which is pretty common.
Yeah.
And his publisher said, we want more. And he's like, well, I don't have anything else.
Yeah. So basically,
here's some money
that the creator's like, hey, I'm done. And they're like, but we want more. I mean, like what? Like Simpsons, Family Guy. I mean, there are so many TV shows out there that are just, I'm sure like whoever initially made Grey's Anatomy was like, I'm done with it. They're like, what if you did 10 more seasons?
Yes. You know? I think Grey's Anatomy is on like season 18 or
I had a literal mini stroke when I heard that. Like, it's still on?
But yeah, so
they're making new episodes of it. What?
So you have Dragon Ball Z, and it's really popular shonen anime that had come out, and you get up to the Cell Saga where you have this massive sacrifice from our main character, which is kind of like handing the reins over to his son Gohan. And you have real stakes, because at this point in the show, the writing's very convoluted, but basically no one can be brought back to life because of things that happened.
Yeah.
And so whenever...
In the show also, people normally can be brought back to life, just to throw that in.
Quite a lot.
The stakes change, though.
But yeah, so basically Goku makes this big sacrifice, and it doesn't end up working, and then essentially Gohan has to take over and essentially defeat the bad guy.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, you have like really good ending spot, because it's now like the original main character's done. You have Gohan, and then it's still a pretty good happy ending. Everyone's saved, the world is saved, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, we want more. And he's like, well, I don't know what.
We want more Goku specifically.
Yeah. So then he basically writes Goku back into the story
for the Buu Saga.
Right.
And
then
is the last one.
Yeah, it goes on for another 100 episodes. It ends, and then
which is crazy to think about. That the Cell Saga is 190 and the Buu Saga is another 100. Like, whenever I think about it, I think, it was like 20 episodes, right? Like some fever dream at the end.
I've still yet to make it all the way through the Buu Saga because I get bored.
It's just not. It's not good. So there's too much comedy. It's just not really good. But then, so then the series ends, and then they make a little off-canon one called Dragon Ball GT. Not great at all. But yeah, so then fast forward to late or mid 2010s, and they come out with Dragon Ball Super, which apparently is canon now for Akira Toriyama is, I guess, an EP for it.
But it's not based off a manga, right? It's just a show.
No. So they made the manga for it.
Okay.
And like he's also writing it, but he's not drawing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's involved.
He is involved.
He is involved. Yeah.
And that had like another 125 episodes with like 4 films.
Yeah.
And the series itself is terrible. Like, absolutely. I watched all of it to make sure that it was bad.
Just out of spite.
Okay.
And just like, I know this is bad, but I'm going to watch every single
My brother
episode.
keeps telling me to check it out, but I haven't made it through
like,
Boo yet.
Here's the thing is, like, this should have ended like over 200 something odd episodes ago.
Right.
Yeah. By this point.
Oh, man, we missed our opportunity to bring up One Piece.
Well, no, but see, that's the thing, though. One Piece still has a good story.
Yeah.
It's a very long
It's a very convoluted long story.
Yes. But yeah, it's definitely one of those shows where, like, I like it. I grew up with it. That was one of the first, for probably all 3 of us in here, like one of the first like real
when
big
that
popular
hit
shows.
Tsunami with Wing and Sailor Moon, Inuyasha,
Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, Dragon Ball Z, Outlaw Star, like all of those.
DBZ was like the one.
Yeah, that was the big one.
Yeah.
And it's I love it. It's just because it's just wrestling,
but you don't need
anime.
more.
We don't need more because it just gets so convoluted.
Man, wrestling would have been a good choice too.
I mean,
I can't believe that WWE's still going on.
I don't know enough about.
I don't know
wrestling
anything about
for it
wrestling.
to
I just know it still exists, which is shocking.
It should have ended after the Attitude Era.
All right, so let's talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
If we must.
Dial in our destiny.
All right, so this is a 2013
Why would you steal
film.
my ad?
Oh, no.
Like that.
Yeah, 2000, not 13. I said 13 because I said 13 for Dragon Ball Super. So
2023.
2023.
There we go.
Directed by James Mangold, not Steven Spielberg.
So Mangold's got 310 to Yuma, Ford versus Ferrari.
He's actually got a crazy diverse career if you look at his movies.
Wild,
He also did Night and Day with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
If you look at his movies, there's not like that's a James Mangold
He does.
movie. It's
he's
guys everywhere.
But I actually think there's a common thread, which I'll get to at some point.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well,
so here is
we'll hold you to that.
Here's a synopsis for Indiana Jones DOD. Daredevil archaeologist Indiana Jones races against time to retrieve a legendary dial that can change the course of history. Accompanied by his goddaughter, he soon finds himself squaring off against Jürgen Voller, a former Nazi who works for NASA.
Former, quote unquote.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. And written by Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, David Coep.
Oh,
and
Cope. I can't remember.
And James
I've seen his
Mangold.
name before.
It had a budget of $295 million, one of the most expensive films ever made.
Wow.
Holy cow. They got it. There's got to be some kind of, they carried a one they shouldn't have, and it's actually 145. I cannot believe this is almost $300 million.
Yeah. So we are recording this right now on Sunday morning of opening weekend. So we don't have full box office numbers of what it made for opening weekend, but the expectations are $60 million for the 3-day weekend and previews.
That's domestic, right?
That's domestic.
Right. Okay.
$85 million likely for the 5-day holiday weekend.
Counting the 4th of July.
Yeah. That's not great.
The question mark is maybe $140 million international. We don't know.
Right. So we're too early to tell.
They're thinking 220-ish global take for
the max
opening. That's estimates. That's some rosy estimates, I feel like.
Yes. And so the big issue here is when you're looking at this kind of budget and long run, is this is one absurdly expensive film. They basically need to make close to $1 billion to make it back.
They got to make more than this. Is an insanely expensive film.
Yes. And you have 3 other films that are coming out that are going to be massive blockbuster films. You have Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, probably not as much as that, but then Barbie.
But Oppenheimer's also still going to soak up some dollars.
Yes.
It's going to if you have the choice, hey, we can see one movie this weekend, and you've got Oppenheimer, Barbie, Dial of Destiny, and Mission Impossible in front of you. I don't think Dial of Destiny is going to win against any of those.
Particularly not because the overall reviews of it have been not good.
Right.
And because of that, it really is going to hurt the long-term box office effect. So they really needed to hit a lot of their budget.
Oh, wow. So I was looking up some box office and budget numbers. So there are reports running around there that it actually cost $329 million to produce, plus $100 million in marketing.
Oh, that's just so much money. But yeah, so we've all seen the film at this point. I'm curious of what your thoughts are. I know what mine are, and I'm going to do my best to not be a big Debbie Downer.
Thought you were going to say curse.
Well, I that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, this movie is, again, our intro topic probably spoiled it. Didn't need to exist, right?
Well, so I think there's a question here is I don't think that Crystal Skull needed to exist either. We've already talked about this.
It didn't.
This one didn't need to exist in the world where
even
Crystal
more.
Skull exists.
Now, I will say it did need to exist because back in 1979, Lucas, Spielberg, and Lucasfilm set down a contract to make 5 films.
Oh, really?
They have now fulfilled. This is like a Pirate of the Caribbean blood contract kind of thing going on here.
I don't think that validates it at all.
They all slit their hands. They drop the final coin in the chest. It's over. We're done.
Break the contract. I don't care.
Spielberg, you got enough money to pay off and break a contract somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my quick, basically assessment of this movie compared to specifically Crystal Skull.
Yes.
Because both Crystal Skull and this, took place after what I always considered just the original trilogy, and it should have ended right there after Last Crusade, right? Crystal Skull has more highs, but more dramatic lows than this movie.
Yeah, this movie is a roller coaster.
Very middling to the point of it making it somehow even worse. Because at least with Crystal Skull, you can make fun of it and meme it.
Yeah.
And then also be like, oh, when you hit a high point
Right.
or stunts or whatever.
Like, so like the motorcycle chase in the library on Crystal Skull is really good. And like there's other parts, like the lighting I like in this movie a lot better than Crystal Skull. The cinematography I like in this movie a lot better than Crystal Skull. Well, okay, no, not fully. I like mostly it's the lighting. Let's just go the lighting.
Yeah,
Lighting,
sure.
I feel like I didn't like the stage lighting in Crystal Skull, but you do get those Spielberg shots every now and then in Crystal Skull. That's like nice. In this one, I feel like some of the performances were good for what they were given. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the performances isn't really necessarily the issue. It's what they were given to work with.
It's what's actually happening on screen.
Yeah. And like the CG is like just a bit much. Some of the action scenes are just too much. It's like this doesn't feel like Indiana Jones anymore, and the sense of like danger that was there when we had like practical action is gone, which it was also gone in Crystal Skull. So it's like that's where I'm the problem I have with both of these movies is that like for me going into this movie, this movie had one job, or two jobs.
It's a departure from form is the big problem.
It is, yeah. This movie had two jobs. One was to make up for the Crystal Skull, and two, justify its existence. And to me, it did neither of those.
Yes.
That's where I'm at. Now, there are definitely some enjoyable parts of this movie. I can see elements that could have been...
The opening sequence is quite good.
Opening sequence is good. I think Harrison Ford, again, given what he was given, with the plot and the script, did good. Like, he does a good performance. I like Mads Mikkelsen and everything he's in. Again,
I think he's underutilized in this.
When he's revealed as the bad guy, I was like, that's a good casting for a bad guy, but I don't think they made full use of him how they could have.
Yeah. That's I think Boyd Holbrook as Kleber, like everything I've seen Boyd Holbrook in, he's been really good. He was in Logan, which is another James Mangold movie. He was the Corinthian in the Sandman series. Like
Kleber. Who is Kleber?
The trigger happy guy.
Oh, it's a mustache.
Yeah, mustache.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's who I thought it was.
Yeah. Like a lot of the people in this movie do a good job. It's just there's nothing. To me, it was a very boring movie. I forgot so much of it already from seeing it to recording now. I'm like rethinking. I'm like, what? Why? How'd they get there?
How did they get from point A to point B to C?
And it's the other thing is too. You have a very polarizing character in Helena. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is a fantastic actress that is completely underutilized in this film.
Same thing, yeah.
There's a couple times where she is given incredibly good lines. Or like she delivers really stale lines from anyone else that would have it.
Right.
Like where she absolutely brings scenes to life.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Like if you had somebody else say these words, you'd be like, womp, 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 womp.
Yeah, but she really delivers. But
her character
is just awful.
Is frustrating.
It's all over the place.
Well, I think the dynamic between Indy and her character
is also not very
good.
There
is no dynamic.
Well, I thought
they couldn't figure out what they wanted the dynamic to be.
It ends up just them bickering for the majority
it's really
of the movie.
Weird.
But there was a couple of times where I thought, oh, we're about to turn a corner and then this is going to be a really fun dynamic, and it never does. To me, at least. Anyways, what do you think, Steven?
So I like your initial description, right? Crystal Skull has some highs, has some lows. You can enjoy the highs, you can make fun of the lows.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was very even throughout, right?
Yeah.
You know what that graph is described as? Flatline.
Flatline.
That just means you're dead. Okay. Honestly, the film just never really got a hold of me. Like it never had a moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm in." Right? You got me with this one. A cool reveal, twist, turn. This took a different direction, or the relationship, say between Indy and Helena, took off, and now it's like, all right, cool. We're like, you had in the first half, you had me. In the second half, though, we're in, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like it wasn't so much that like, oh, the CGI was bad. It just felt like there was way too much. Mm-hmm. It almost kind of felt like for a lot of the film, I was almost kind of watching like a late franchise Fast and Furious film.
Kind of.
There's just a lot happening all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so far beyond the point of like believing the stunts that happen that it's just blatantly obvious, hey, like you're not on the back of a car. You're on a green block with a green screen behind you. Well, and
I feel like too, specifically with like the CG is like there's moments where like I think if you could have taken this action scene and put it in another movie, I would have been talking about it like, whoa, that was a really cool scene.
Yeah.
You see all that. But for some reason in an Indiana Jones movie,
it
just doesn't click. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Me,
like, that's hard to quantify like the reasons why, but
yeah, there were a lot of things I really wanted to like about the film. I liked the concept of the opening and kind of like where it went. It was lit entirely too dark.
I think they were trying to cover up a lot of the CG.
That is most likely what it was, but this is kind of like, we're joking about shaky cam and 3D.
Dark cam.
Super dark has been in for far too long at this point.
Yeah.
It was absurdly too dark for a lot of the film.
Sequences.
Yeah.
And like parts that I wanted to watch and enjoy, like, again, you back up to the start of Raiders, right? Mm-hmm. Same scenario. You're on top of a train. You have the chase of the train.
You mean Last Crusade?
Oh, sorry, Last Crusade. Thank you. Broad daylight the whole way through.
Because they did it
for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if we had that train scene and like maybe we start where we did in the dark and the rain. That's fine because you're indoors or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we go from there to like it's sun's rising. We have a sunrise chase.
Yeah.
And how cool that could have looked.
Yeah.
And so it's for me, there was a lot of that where it was like, you had a lot of really good ideas, and either you couldn't figure out how to connect them to each other, or when you executed the idea, it wasn't executed as well as it could have been.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of sequences, and I'm not really spoiling anything. It was all in the trailers.
Yeah.
Like the ticker tape parade. The concept of that's really cool.
Yeah.
The execution was fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there was never a moment. I was very whelmed. Right. There was never a moment where I was like, oh yeah, like that is
right. Yeah.
That's so cool. And there really wasn't a moment where I was like, okay, guys, that was neat, whatever. But there was just a whole lot of me just kind of sitting there like,
okay,
yeah, we're going to go somewhere, right? Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, so,
what's your thoughts?
On the cast, by this point, everyone that's been listening to the cast for 2 years almost at this point.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Wow. But it's
happening.
I try and be generally pretty positive about stuff.
Yeah.
And
Andrew's the sunshine pumper.
I try. Well, because, I try and justify, not even justify, I just try and look at stuff of like from the perspective of like the filmmakers and that kind of thing. And I like James Mangold. I think he's a fantastic director.
Yeah, like,
Ford v Ferrari is one of my favorite.
He's made a lot of good films.
Yeah, racing film stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that he is an action movie director. He has movies that have action in them, like Logan and
but
Night
Logan,
and Day.
Like Logan's core story was not the action.
It's a character drama.
It was the character.
Right.
It was the dealing with age and fading out kind of thing. And like again, that movie nailed it. I never in my life did I expect an X-Men movie to hit as hard as that one did.
No,
right?
and half the reason is because it was rated R and they could actually explore some
just
cool
went with it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Fox let them, and then I watched it. And I was like, too little, too late. Like, what are y'all doing? This is great, but now the X franchise is basically over.
Yeah. Well, now
why didn't you do this at the front?
You put an end cap on the X-Men franchise with your best effort.
I guess
that's the end cap.
We've been sandbagging for 15 years.
But that's kind of the thing is like, I think that he is a fantastic director. I don't think he is a director for an Indiana Jones film. And I really would love to see Steven Spielberg, without the influence of George Lucas at the helm, being able to make Dial of Destiny, where it's just his film. Because I think that the core story for this film and a lot of the stuff that they go through would be phenomenal in a Steven Spielberg film.
So, see, I disagree. I think it would be good. But I feel like the core problems with this movie wouldn't be fixed by a different director. I feel like there's a lot that needs to be
a different writer.
So the issue is that, and you kind of touched on it earlier, the movie's just boring.
It is.
It doesn't have the snappy pacing that even Crystal Skull has.
Right.
Well, because Crystal Skull was helmed by a director who is meant for action films. That is what he does. And it just comes with an inherent pacing where like each of these scenes lasted maybe about 30 seconds to a minute too long.
I feel like a lot of that could just be the editor though.
No, but that's the thing though, because each of these scenes still have story and plot elements that have to happen. They just happen over the course, let's say like it's a 2.5 minute scene.
Yeah.
You have plot point at 0 seconds, you have plot point at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, where Steven Spielberg may cut that down into a minute and a half to where it doesn't overstay its welcome, where basically every single one of these scenes always felt like it was like, oh man, this kind of went on a little bit too long.
It did feel, the whole movie felt about 30 minutes too long.
Yeah. 20 easy. Yeah. So I'm going to throw down some trivia here early. So tell me how
early
you feel.
Trivia.
Tell me how you feel about this scenario. So in 2015, I'm going to butcher his name, Martin Villeneuve. So this is Denis Villeneuve's brother.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Martin!
penned an unsolicited script proposal for a 5th or 6th installment of Indiana Jones.
He skipped all the way to the 6th.
Based on ideas he had pitched to his older brother.
Yeah.
Who was then about to direct Blade Runner.
Okay.
So they tried to get this in front of Kathleen Kennedy with the goal of Spielberg directing it.
Yeah.
I wonder, and so again,
were they gonna throw a script down in front of her food at a cafe or something?
I don't know. Did he just walk?
Didn't he? It's her. Give me a script.
And obviously, there's some familial obligations here in the sense that we're never going to see the script, so we don't know, and also it's his brother. But Denis described the script as being nearly perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't.
My brother, he's a good writer.
I looked at what credits Martin has, and they're mostly French stuff I've never heard of, basically. So I don't have any basis where I'm like, oh yeah, he remember when he wrote this cool film we all love? I don't know. So who knows what could have been there?
What was his idea?
But it could have. I don't know.
Got it.
And I don't know that anyone ever saw this outside of the brothers, and then Kathleen maybe for as long as it took her to push it into the trash. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's one of those.
She puts
things,
her cigarette on it, and it just catches fire.
The characterization that they have for Indiana Jones in this one was a little bit more subdued. He kind of felt like a secondary character in his own film.
Sometimes,
a couple times, and then
which that can be fine if you're playing the game of we're going to launch a new franchise off.
Yeah,
of you.
You're definitely not launching a franchise.
The film
on Helena.
didn't head this way at all. They didn't even set it up that way at all.
No.
Really.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating too because this film has I say all of the ingredients that would make a really good Indiana Jones film, and that's what's frustrating whenever you get through the end of the film. You're just like, that was it.
Yeah.
And just not because the film wasn't good, it also wasn't bad either. It was exactly a film.
I got out of there. I walked out of the theater and I felt nothing.
Yeah.
No rage.
Dead inside.
No happiness. I was just the same as when I went in. I was like, okay, I was sat in front of a screen and images hit me for
you felt
2.5 hours.
$10 poor.
Yeah.
And that was about it.
And it's exactly like I said with the Crystal Skull. At least with the extreme lows that Crystal Skull gets to when Shia LaBeouf is swinging with monkeys through the trees, you can at least make fun of it and meme it. This one, there's nothing to even meme about this one,
Well, and that's maybe kind of the cardinal sin that's played out here by this film, in that it doesn't do anything that makes me go wow, or new, or really pushes an envelope anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not a critical success, right? There's nothing that the critics are raving about in this, really.
No.
And it also didn't, it is totally fine, look at Super Mario Brothers. It is totally fine to release a film that doesn't push any envelopes, doesn't do anything new, but it's at least entertaining.
Yeah.
And it's going to make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. And it just makes a boatload of cash.
This hits that mark either of just hey, I got 2 hours of entertainment out of this.
I think for me, one of the biggest missing elements is the comedy. Mm-hmm. There was not a lot of levity. There was not a lot of comedy.
And any
in
kind
this
of
one.
comedy that there was generally at the butt of Helena just being a terrible human being.
Right. Yeah. It didn't have the same comedic feel as the
sort
other
of
ones
the snappiness of it.
Yeah.
It really did. Just it's one of those things where it's you're close, and if you could have gotten a little closer on a few elements, we might sound totally different right now.
Yeah.
But they missed every time by just a little bit, and then it's well, if you had hit a couple of these, maybe.
Yeah.
We feel better about
it. Would you rewatch it? Would you recommend it? Is the next question.
I mean, I would only rewatch this in the context of I'm doing some kind of a rewatch of the entire series, but legitimately for me, moving forward, I will probably just rewatch the first 3 and call it right there.
Yeah.
Anytime I do a rewatch of these, in my mind, the trilogy was the only movies, and 4 and 5 don't exist.
Calm down, Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I mean, but that's if I'm gonna sit down and actually enjoy the movies, I would probably just watch the first 3. So the only reason I would rewatch this one, maybe when it comes out to just give it a second shot or something. If I read some kind of article where they're y'all need to give Dial of Destiny another chance, think of it through this lens, maybe, but probably not.
Yeah.
What about you?
I have a hard time recommending this to someone if you felt very jilted by Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
You may like this one a little bit more because I think that the story elements and the big twist at the end is more in line with what Indiana Jones is kind of about, despite being all basically around the same. But like the elements are there, the ingredients are there. It's just
the execution on a lot of it.
The execution just doesn't do it for me. So it's like it's hard for me to like. I mean, the film is fine. Like if you like Indiana Jones and you want more of it, it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably won't really want to rewatch this film, though. Like, I would probably rewatch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Again, at least you can make fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can crack open a beer and just like point at the screen and laugh.
And maybe it's just because I like Spielberg as a director, and it still has some of that flair in there. But I don't know. Like, I'm really sad that
this movie's almost so middling it's bad, but it's technically not.
But it's not bad enough for you could be amused by how bad it is.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, again, I really like James Mangold as a director. I think he's a fantastic director. I just don't think he's a director for Indiana Jones.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of same boat here. You know, like if you are an Indiana Jones diehard, you got to complete the set. By all means, watch it.
Go ahead.
I don't think you're going to come away from it upset. You know, kind of how we came away. You're just going to walk away and be like, okay, that happened. But I can't see myself rewatching this anytime soon.
Yeah.
Do you want a dial that lets you turn back time into the annals of the past to see history being made? SpoilersIntendedPodcast.com is your dial of destiny. That's right. You can go there and find all of our previous episodes.
Almost 2 years worth of content.
2 years worth of content.
Whoa.
Along with other things like links to our Discord, Patreon, and socials.
Yeah, we also have on Discord, we have channels where you can, what we're watching, what we're listening to, what food we're eating this week, what we're cooking. We have spoiler channels where you can go and talk about specific shows that we've reviewed, or other stuff that's coming out. It's always a good time. We're trying to be active in there. We always appreciate new blood in the Discord.
Oh God, blood! Bring your blood to the Discord. Yeah. We also have social media. We have a Facebook and an Instagram. We would love for you to follow us over there. We try to post every week what we're going to be recording the next week, so you can watch along with us.
And we are back from the spoiler wall through the trans-dimensional time doorway.
Space butthole. Or sky butthole.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And the Langoliers are on the other side of that for those Stephen King fans.
But yeah, so we are back. Spoilers all the time, everywhere.
We're surrounded by spoilers.
Oh, they're all over me.
Lousy with spoilers, if you will.
The spoilers are on me.
So, yeah, just if you haven't seen the film and you don't want anything else spoiled,
or just stick around. Who cares?
You're really not going to miss out on much.
Yeah.
So, Steven, hit us with some trivia.
Sure. So I'm going to kick this off with kind of a weird one. So James Mangold stated in the past that the opening, this says opening credits, but I feel like really just like the opening.
This doesn't actually have opening credits for, this is the first one.
That's why I thought it was weird, because they say opening credits. I feel like what they really meant was the opening.
Yes.
Would be in the style of Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, it's Last Crusade, guys. Like, you just did Last Crusade. So I thought that was odd.
Well, the other thing is, too, is that this was the first Indiana Jones film, or the only Indiana Jones film, that doesn't open up with the Paramount logo fading into a mountain-shaped
some other shape to replace the mountain, So it's the first film in the series not to be distributed by Paramount Pictures.
Because Disney
because Disney purchased Lucasfilm in 2012. And this is also...
I'm seeing a trend.
Yeah, well, this is also... let's keep the trend going. The only Indiana Jones film not directed by Spielberg.
Yeah.
So we've already kind of gone over that a little bit. So the decision to step away from the film as director was entirely Spielberg's.
Really?
So I wonder...
I probably don't blame him,
if he looks at this script and was like, yeah, someone else could do this one.
Yeah, probably.
I'll be a producer. Just call me if you got questions or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, he is EP for this.
He is, yes. So on something that we didn't hit on prior to, that I'm sure we'll talk about in Spectacle, the de-aging was actually pretty good, I thought.
It actually it was.
So I almost brought it up a couple times, but then I was like, is that spoilery? I don't know.
So
yeah,
this is an interview from all the way back in 2015. Again, if you want to know how long they've been working on this film. So Harrison Ford explained how the digital de-aging works. So they have, AI program that goes through every single footage of film Lucasfilm owns that has Ford in it, which of course that's a ton of films, not just Indiana Jones, including film that was never made, like, stayed on the cutting floor, right? So stuff that didn't make it. So it takes that to create his face, and then they basically paint dots on his face for it to match up to.
Yeah.
And because he has not gained a lot of weight, he hasn't really changed size, it fits very well.
Yeah.
And they have all these different samples they can pull from. Well, we need to light him from the left, from the right, from below. Like they have because they have so much film.
Right.
But I mean, like, honestly, the de-aging looked quite good.
I thought it did pretty good.
I expected
it was better
that
than
to be
Jeff
a complaint.
Bridges from Tron.
Oh, for sure. Well, most things are. So, do you have more trivia? Sorry.
I have a few other things.
Well, let's jump into the de-aging or the face real quick.
Yeah.
And then, so to me, it was like there were definitely certain angles where it really worked, and then other times where he'd move his mouth and it would look really weird.
Yeah.
Also, you can still hear the 80-year-old old man voice.
That's what I was going to bring up.
So I've got a thing on that too.
It's still Harrison Ford acting it, and he's like 80 years old.
Well, like, so recently they had a Paul McCartney thing where they're using AI to, like, make voices of people. And, the problem with, in case you don't know, with like the AI in the music industry is that it's like crazy accurate on certain voices with certain styles of music.
Yeah.
Others, it's not. Really, anyone with a lot of dynamic range in their vocals, it's harder.
You can't do it, yeah.
Especially if you're trying to take, like people are out there taking like a Whitney Houston song and trying to make it sound like Ariana Grande.
Yeah.
Saying
it's
using
struggle
AI.
there, yeah.
Right. And with this Paul McCartney song, they took a track off his newest album, but they used AI to make him sound like he used to during
like
the Beatles.
From like the 60s,
weird.
And because it's less of a jump to go from old McCartney to young McCartney than it is from like Whitney Houston to Ariana Grande, it sounds
great,
incredible. Yeah. It sounds just like Paul McCartney. And so I was the whole time going like, why didn't they just do that with Harrison Ford's voice of like, you have samples of his voice just like you have pictures.
Yeah.
Like just because like every now and then he'd say something and I'm like, he sounds like he's about to take a nap. And he looks like a young man. No, to me, this is the last thing I'll say about the de-aging on the face, right? Really well done.
Spectacle. We have time to talk about that.
Okay, I'll table it.
Just hold on.
I want to see what opinions.
I'm gonna forget this point now. I'll never forgive you.
What opinions this elicits from the crowd when I bring it up.
Okay.
So John Williams has stated that a new ending had to be shot. Now I don't know if that's like the final in the apartment scene or like the actual like
the ending
back in time scene.
What's crazy is James Mangold has come out and refuted that and said no. And so it's like, who do you believe?
I don't know. That's a good question, actually, because he says he had to compose new scores for that piece.
Yeah.
So I don't know, because when I watched the ending, I was like, man,
Kennedy's
we're
just
all
over there,
the
just trying to punch John Williams and Mangold's like, you figure it out.
Putting her cigarette out on their scripts. Why does she keep doing this?
Let's see what else is out there. There's not a ton of trivia, just because
it's brand new.
It's brand new.
Yeah. You need to have like post interviews and that kind of stuff for like a lot of like
you need some
trivia
time,
to come up.
Or you need them to figure out what their story is going to be about. Was an ending reshot, and come out and give us an actual.
Or if there'd been a lot of like false starts, there would probably be some more trivia. But
I mean, kind of with that, like again, Spielberg was originally set to direct, right? Yeah. So Harrison was talking about the de-aging process in 2015.
Right. Yeah.
Spielberg stepped down in 2020. So there was pre-production and stuff done prior to this that had Spielberg. In it, and on top of it,
because he hasn't really. I mean, like he's done other stuff since then, like since 2020.
Yeah, it's not like
he had the Fabelmans.
It's not like he retired or something.
Yeah, but interesting. Either he must have had a big falling out, maybe with Kathleen, or just Disney in general, because it's not
he started
Paramount
talking
anymore.
to George, and he's just like, "Man, I can't handle this."
It could have just been that he was like loosely attached, and it was assumed he would direct it, and he was like, well, we'll see what happens," and then like. Because that's the thing, I can't remember which director it was, but there was somebody who, like in Hollywood, a lot of times there would be like a soft yes, like a conversation of like,
I would do that.
Would you be interested in directing something? And they'd be like, well, yeah. And then they leak it, the person asking leaks it to the Hollywood Reporter. And now it's like out there. And then when they eventually come to terms and start talking, they're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be a part of this. It's like, they dropped out of the project. It's like, well, hold on. Like, it was never like, I didn't sign a contract.
Yeah.
So we don't know what his involvement 100% was, but he definitely exited the running.
Yes. So this is just a weird quirk here. Every odd-numbered Indiana Jones film has featured Nazis as the antagonists, and had Sala as Indy's sidekick.
Yes, that is also.
I actually felt like that was we'll get into this in plot. That was a big missed opportunity to not have him, because their dynamic is still great.
Yes.
The comedy with them was there. The interplay was there. Like, I really was ready for him to go with him.
Yeah.
Or show up later, like in Tangiers, to help out or something, and then it just didn't happen. I was kind of disappointed.
Is John Rhys Davies' health like pretty good? Maybe there was like an issue with like
that I don't know.
He may not have been able to like be a part of a lot of it, but they were like, we got him for this day.
For a bit. Well, because he had wanted to come back for Crystal Skull, and they had offered him to be in the wedding scene in the background.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Nah, that's not like that's not what people want out of that."
That'd be
character.
weird. Yeah.
Where this one, he actually has plot relevance.
Yeah.
So I mean, it does. Like, I liked his inclusion in the film. I just wish it was a little bit more.
I wish they'd done more with it.
I like his character.
Yeah.
So spectacle. Let's talk about it.
Let's get in there.
Yeah. I mean,
all right, Ryan. Here's your chance. What was that de-aging?
I forgot what I was
point?
going to say.
Yeah, that's what.
No, just playing.
Get wrecked.
So, to me, the thing with the de-aging that they need to institute across the board with every movie, use less of it.
Yeah.
Just shoot the character from the back. Show him from an angle. Like, why they are obsessed with, like, we have to have these close-ups on their face, full face in multiple let's just shoot it like we would do a normal movie, and then we'll just replace it. And for me, that's where it breaks. Is like when they first take the bag off his head, it looks perfect.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, this looks really good. Then he starts talking, you're like, oh, this looks pretty good. Then he says some word and kind of turns to the side, and I go, oh, uncanny valley. And then it's like we go to the next scene, and it's like, okay, he looked at the camera and said one word, it looked fine. Then he kept talking, uncanny valley.
Well, and I think the whole reason why that entire sequence was shot at night was to hide a lot of the
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So for me, same idea, right? In Rogue One, when they have Tarkin with Peter Cushing, and they do the reflection, I was like,
this is
that's
genius.
so clever. Yeah, that's such a good way to get around this. And then he just turned around. I was like, oh, never mind.
Oh, he's just a character. Got it.
Then he turns and looks at you're like, oh no.
Yeah, I know. You were doing so well. That was so clever to just have his reflection, or like you only see Leia from the back, and we know because it's iconic gown that she's in. She's just gonna turn around. I was like, all right, well,
just a plasticky 19-year-old Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, because like at the time,
that was really the eyes on that one.
But I thought then, they figured it out. They have the answer here. Oh, do a reflection. Do it from the back. No. Full on face.
I was the same way in the theater. I was like, that's perfect. You'll never see, like, you can tell it looks like him.
You know exactly who it is. Like, everyone knows.
Turns and dead barrels the camera, and you're like, oh, okay.
Well, I thought Cushing was actually fine in that.
His was fine.
But
because
at
his
least
face
with Carrie
is so
Fisher,
craggy that you actually have texture and detail there. It works. Whereas Carrie Fisher,
just
again,
porcelain
a
doll.
Smooth 19-year-old, like, she had great complexion.
Easy.
And it just looks like you could take your finger to squeak.
Yeah.
Right off that platform.
Well, and at least Carrie Fisher was alive whenever they asked her if she would be okay with that.
Also, we get into the uncanny valley, which obviously with Harrison Ford we don't have that problem. He was there.
Yeah, he was there. He acted
that's
it.
a different kind of Black Mirror zone of we're going to force this person's likeness to act for the rest of eternity.
In terms of that opening scene, I thought it was great. In terms of the overall feel of it, it felt like an Indiana Jones movie.
It felt like a Spielberg kind of action scene, particularly on the train, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. The motorcycle, jumping from the car to the motorcycle, a lot of that felt kind of, again, it was almost like too much for an Indiana Jones movie of like the leap and like the
thing that this actually
and surviving the bomb too. That was kind of like, oh, he's just bomb proof. Everyone else died. Like, okay,
well, so
because he was hanging above the floor and everyone was on the floor.
Yeah,
I guess.
So this was
shrapnel doesn't hit this high, just this high.
This is more of a plot issue, but it bothers me that he's transporting these two clearly like officers or whatever for the German military.
Yeah,
and
he just knows where to go.
Like, well, not even that. Okay. It's like the second that he starts going off the rails and trying to get to the train, and clearly like this is not the plan, like what the plan is. Yeah. Both of those officers have sidearms.
Yeah, they just rode with it.
You're in an active military zone. There's a 0% chance that you don't have a sidearm.
Yeah,
right. You shoot the guy driving your car, and then now your car's careening off the cliff.
Yeah, probably.
Wow. No.
Yeah,
I don't think you just kill the person driving the car.
You shoot him in the shoulder or something.
You at least put your gun up to the back and be like, get back on the road.
Yeah, like both of these guys have sidearms.
That was weird.
Well, maybe they assumed the people on the motorcycles were the bad guys. This guy's the hero. He's trying to save us from these saboteurs outside the car.
Okay, that's actually fair. Okay, that's a fair point.
Yeah, maybe they're like, yes, Run them off the road. What do they do? Who are they? What's happening? Did I miss a memo?
Did I miss a telegram?
Flipping through his telegram. Hold on.
So for me, the action sequence, like the way it was done and how it felt, was very Spielberg, very classic Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It being at night, again, probably a CGI kind of cover up the seams move, which made me sad. I really wanted to get a better feel for some of those. Or like, it felt like too, they almost put, when they are on top of the train, they put like a ton of smoke up there just to be like, okay, let's just kind of hide the fact that you're just standing on a green floor in a green room.
Yeah, they're definitely, it feels to me like what would have been a better way to execute it would have been to get an actor roughly the same size and build as young Harrison Ford, put the dots on his face, and, you know,
put him on top of an actual train.
Put him on a real train.
Do this.
Yeah. And then again, don't shoot it where you can see his face in every shot. Do some key shots where like he looks up and puts the hat back on or something.
Yeah.
Have like your hero moments, but other than that, obscure it with angles.
Well, and also,
you know, so we get actual practical train.
If you do that moment, right, where he tips the hat down into his hand and then puts it on his head and he starts to look up and you get maybe like the glint of the eyes and then there's dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Like you've already achieved everything you need to do in an Indiana Jones film.
You're done.
Like you're set.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I was going to throw this in front of y'all. So talking about the de-aging process, right? It's pulling all this footage of Harrison Ford from Lucasfilm Productions, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that was also where part of the issue was because it felt like the lighting was off in every scene. And I wonder if that is the contrast of like a Spielberg or a Lucas lighting versus Mangold's setup and lighting that he wants to do. Because honestly, throughout lots of parts of the film, I felt like scenes were just lit odd, not in a way where I was like, oh, that's bad, but also sometimes I can't see it. But it was almost like it obscured the action I wanted to be watching. Or it hid the main focal point that I was trying to see.
The way I was reading a lot of that with the lighting was that it was because it was shot on a green screen in a lot of those scenes. And they were trying to make it look like natural lighting, not movie lighting. To make the scene feel like it's not CG, but then ironically made it more like CG,
more obvious, so, like some part of your your lizard brain.
So one of the big I think the big set piece, like big action set piece, is the tuk-tuk chase in Tangier,
which is such a great concept in of itself. We're gonna have a chase. Like we've done motorcycles, we've done trains, we've done planes. Let's do tuk-tuks. Cool.
Yeah, and it was fine. But it was one of those things where there was so much going on.
There were way too many things
that I
happening.
couldn't understand where they were, the logistics of like essentially Tangier of like how they could catch up to this car that clearly had like a good
lead on them,
like 2-minute lead on them multiple times.
If they could have done like a drone shot or something to just show that like,
it's like switchbacks or whatever.
Yeah.
Or he like looks through a market and it's like, I've got to go, this is the way to cut across,
And I did like the kind of addition of essentially having the same kind of Hong Kong car chase with short round analog in Toby.
Temple of Doom.
Teddy.
Oh,
Toby.
Yeah,
Calm down, McGuire.
But yeah, as Teddy, and I actually liked his character, but we'll get into that
further down the line,
But it was one of those things where it's like, I was excited for that chase because I'm like, oh, here it is. Yeah. And then it takes someone a little bit too long to get started because then you had to introduce, like, I guess, Helena's
jilted lover.
Yeah, jilted lover, whatever.
Yeah.
And
that felt like an extra wrinkle that we didn't
need.
It's kind of like they kept trying to establish that she's up to shady stuff. And it's like, but we already know this.
Yeah.
Like, we've established this over and over and over at this
They were trying to really drive home of like,
she's a terrible person.
In depth.
Yeah.
She is with stuff.
Which again, if you're like, hey, this is one of our main characters, she's a terrible person. She's a terrible person. She's a terrible person. Again, that's just plot stuff. But like, don't do that.
Yeah. But yeah,
I'm never gonna root for her.
There was a lot of tell, don't show in this, and that was one of those scenes where it's like, okay, we know that the chase is going to happen, and it's just kind of taking a long time to get there. And then when it did happen, I still like had no idea. Like, did those people just die? Did they get shot? I don't know.
Yeah.
What car are they on now?
To me, it felt like the scene. Ironically, was a little too fast.
Yes.
They should have slowed it down a little bit, and then like the speed of the tuk-tuks themselves.
Because you just don't have like the clarity that you have with like a Spielberg film.
Right.
And that's kind of where I've been hammering
The second
down.
thing with the clarity is I don't even know if it's clarity. It's the camera movements, the swings are too drastic, like in a circular motion around the tuk-tuks, if instead of just like riding with it.
Yeah.
But again, I think this is a huge difference between shooting that practically
and having
shooting
CGI.
it CG with CG. Well, not to it's that trap you fall into of like we can move the camera anywhere. You know,
but it shouldn't.
Yeah, but yeah.
Not to reach into the Wayback Machine, but go back to Last Crusade, right? And we have, let's say, the initial train chase, right? It's it's trains on tracks. It's very linear. You know where things move. You go to like the tank scene at the end, and they establish very firmly at the start of that sequence how the convoy's laid out, what it looks like, where pieces are, and you can follow the bits of there should be a truck coming up with more Nazi soldiers to jump on the tank, like all those fit. Whereas this, it was just like everyone told me to go left, I turned right, and we pop out and the car's here. What? How? Where? Why?
So, and then we'll fast forward in the film to the underwater scene. I couldn't understand anything that was happening in there. Like no idea
when they're going down.
They're
Antonio
Banderas. Yeah.
When Zorro's taking him down.
That cracked me up. I saw him and I was like, boy, you look familiar. I was like, Antonio Banderas.
Well, the second he said something like,
well, when he says Indy, I was like, wait, because in the trailer, I thought it was Nathan Fillion. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, wait, that's not Nathan Fillion. Who is that? And then when he gets up, I was like, that's Antonio Banderas. Oh, what's he going to do in this movie? Oh, die immediately?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay, got it.
But yeah, so like I couldn't understand anything that was happening underwater. I kind of
really
just tuned out because I'm like,
who was who?
I think that they found the thing. I don't know.
I didn't have any trouble with that.
I couldn't see it.
It was not that dark in my theater.
No, I couldn't see anything. Two, they made it very clear. Hey, you're attached to the surface with lines.
Yeah,
and they're like, just climb through this thing any way you want, any direction. Y'all are crisscrossing left and right.
Yeah,
at this point, y'all are such a tangled mess of wires.
Everyone dies,
just like, whatever. You just die down here.
But then fast forward again, we'll go to the whenever they actually go in the B-72. No,
that is not a B-7. What?
I don't know what kind of plane.
That's an airplane. Doesn't matter.
That was a German bomber. It was like a Heinkel or something. I think.
Oh, okay.
You're a Heinkel.
I'm not familiar with bombers.
So anyways, they go through the Heinkel in middle air and they go back in time.
Yeah. So they go back in time. And honestly, like the Roman siege, honestly looked fine to me.
It was fun. It was
actually that was kind of cool. I liked the seeing that happen underneath them. Everything to get there, and then hey, what do you know? It's a Heinkel 111. Nailed it. German bomber. Just say Heinkel. You'll be fine.
German bomber.
Heinkel, nice to meet you.
But yeah, honestly, the siege looked pretty good.
I thought that whole sequence wasn't bad looking.
It was the dark, rainy plane ride leading up to it that was again kind of a little too dark and kind of like we're trying to obscure it with rain and darkness to hide our CG, and then they go through that big Heinkel hole, and then
the Heinkel hole. That was a sky butthole. That was my wife leaned over to me and said, "What's with the butthole in the sky?"
Well, clearly it's a time fissure,
which is interesting. At least
it didn't go went through it or something.
They kind of did because they got kind of. They kind of popped out of it on the other end, and they lost their engines or whatever, which is again another what's going on here.
Our engines are based off of time.
All right, let's move on to spectacle.
So we are talking.
We're in the middle of it, baby.
Performance.
Okay, yeah.
Unless we have anything else that we wanted to add.
No, I think we're touching on plot with a lot of this. So we need to start moving.
Yeah.
Performance, I thought just about everybody did really good. I think the biggest problem was there were so many people
you have to work with
underserved by the content, and on top of that, kind of like I don't know, underserved by the plot. Like another example that her name is Shawnette Renee Wilson. She played the African American CIA officer,
the CIA agent. Yeah.
I thought when she popped up on the screen, I was like, okay, what's this? And then you realize she's CIA, and I'm like, oh, where's this movie going to go?
Like a lot of convoluted stuff happening here.
And I was like, are we going to have like a CIA agent and Indy like team up and do a thing? You know? And then she just dies and you're like, oh, man.
So my biggest issue with the performance is, and we already kind of touched on this multiple times here, is there's too many sidekicks.
Yeah,
if we had Teddy throughout as the sidekick, or Sala, or I don't even remember Antonio Banderas. But pick one of them and stick with it. You know, like in other Indiana Jones films, we got Mutt, we got Short Round, we got Sala. That's it. Like we don't try to stuff too many other side characters in there.
Well, because you also had Toby Jones as Basil Shaw in the opening.
Yeah.
Which I actually liked him. He was good.
I liked it. Yeah. But like at the same time, we need one of these so that we can have time to build up interplay with them and either take the story somewhere or turn it with them.
We just get this mean, terrible person that's just talking at Indiana Jones the entire time.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Hey, here's our
Helena.
other main character. You should root for her." It's like, okay, well, give me a reason to root for her,
and
please.
there is no reason to root for her.
It's not like she did a bad job. It's not like she was putting on a bad performance. It's just what she was given. And honestly, like what basically everyone was given was just kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
And sometimes they kind of rose above it a little, and sometimes it just kind of hit it flatline.
Yeah. So for Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the final scene whenever they're in Sicily and like she's basically trying to like plead with Indiana Jones to like go back and not just like die in 2013 BC.
Right.
But that whole thing, I was like, ooh, this is where was this like the entire film?
Where was this for the whole film?
And like she's showing genuine emotion and like
it was fantastic.
Well, they didn't really give us a good reason for that turn. So, and this is I'll get into it.
Yeah,
I'll get into it. I'll get into it.
It didn't make sense just for her character,
but for acting,
I was like, ooh, I'm feeling something
thing is,
here.
She can act. It's just I feel like she's never given good
she's not
material.
The problem with her character and what they gave her, and this is again, she did great with what she was given. Like so many times, it's like she's supposed to be, I think, the comedic relief. Like we're supposed to be endeared by something she does, as like, oh, you scamp.
Oh yeah, you're so silly.
Initially, like she's in his classroom and she's kind of like this. The guise of like this wide-eyed admirer, and you're like, okay, this is going to be an interesting dynamic, and then it twists, and you're like, oh, this is kind of like Marion from Raiders.
Being
like she's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm so like burnt out from my father being an adventurer and all this. Like I'm just going to be on the black market, just like Marion in the front of Raiders. Just selling stuff to the highest bidder. And I was like, okay, let's get into this, And then she kind of evolves from that into just a really, like, she never has the same, I guess, moments of levity and joking around with Indy that, like, Karen Allen as Marion had in like the other like in Raiders.
So the big thing here is that just from a plot perspective, like she's the goddaughter. You can't have a romantic.
No, I didn't mean romantic. I just mean like the interplay.
Well, no, but like the reason why a lot of that happened was because back then, like you had love interest
you had a little
also
bit of
involved in
there.
So there's some tension where you can't have any of that tension here. So now you have to rely on the initial like character personalities, and she just has a terrible personality.
Well, I was gonna say the other problem to me is that like with Marion, at least, at no point did I feel like, oh, this Marion's a scoundrel. She's really not a good person. Like I thought, oh, well, she's selling stuff on the black market,
doing her own on her own path.
With this girl, halfway through the movie, I was like, she's just a bad person.
Yeah, Well, so I'm really sad that Antonio Banderas just basically got killed almost immediately, because I was like, ooh, he'd be a great sidekick for like as kind of like keep moving on, because his crew got killed, so now like he's got no one else, so now he's got to get back at the Germans.
Yeah, well, and he's just a great actor in general, so you want to see him on screen.
Yeah,
and once you realize, oh yeah, there he is, like,
and now he's dead.
Yep.
I did like Ethan Isidore, who's Teddy. I liked him. Like, I liked just that character. As the sidekick.
I liked his performance.
Yeah.
I didn't too much love what they did with his character necessarily. We'll get into that with plot.
Yeah. That's a whole different.
That's the theme of almost every character in this movie for me, though. So
I don't think anyone got up there and just like laid a stinker on screen. It's they weren't given a whole lot to start with.
Mads Mikkelsen out here doing just God's work. Like,
man, this guy again. As soon as you see Mads Mikkelsen as a villain, like, oh yeah, this is. Dude, where is Mads? Why are you not on screen more?
I know.
Give me. Let's monologue a little bit. Let's get a little chit chat going here. Let's sound superior to people. No, he's just off screen doing whatever.
Yeah.
What?
So we need to. We also need to mention Karen Allen, because she does have a cameo at the end there, and
always nice to
see her on there. And it was a little too much emotional terrorism that they use at the end.
It was a little, yeah.
But because I definitely teared up, but not because of the film, just because of all the history that they've had. And I'm like, oh, come on, why you got to do this to me right now?
Well,
I didn't like this film.
If they did have reshoots, that probably may have been one of the things they added in.
I liked the little. So we talked a little bit about humor, right? Mm-hmm. The little bit of humor where they show, like at the start of the film, the divorce papers.
Yeah.
And he puts the magnet over her face on the mirror on the thing, and then when she's putting stuff in their groceries, he like casually moves it off of her face.
Yeah.
Like that's a really great small subtle piece that people like Harrison Ford. And
Yeah.
like they're gonna pull it off flawlessly.
Yeah.
We needed more of that.
Yeah.
They needed more opportunities like that.
Yeah, I do think too. Like when Karen Allen popped up, like her appearance and her stuff in Kingdom Skull always felt weird and forced to me. Like it was fine. It wasn't her performance necessarily.
Yeah.
It was just like
it's just clunky writing.
clunky. Yeah,
Yeah.
This felt natural, but like you're saying, like emotional terrorism. But like her aesthetic, like the '60s grandma, I was like, oh, this feels like Marion more than the Marion from Crystal Skull
Yeah,
did to
for
me.
sure.
That one just felt like they were like, we got to have Karen Allen in this because we're going to make Mud his kid. You know, like that felt like a weird like studio
Well, it's a
decision
shoehorn,
almost.
yeah.
Whereas this felt like that's where she would be in the '60s.
But yeah, no, it was definitely emotional terrorism when they did the call back to them on the boat and like, oh, where does it hurt? I'm like, oh, come on, you don't need to do this to me. I didn't like this film.
And it didn't feel as earned. You know, like
yeah.
If they had addressed him and Karen Allen's split. You know, Marion split multiple times throughout the movie.
Instead of just said it in passing.
Or if we'd even gotten a little bit of Marion as a character, her own story throughout. Like she's somehow, like, I don't know, the CIA contacted her. Again, we're getting into rewriting the plot thing, but like bring her more into the story so that when the two characters meet again, it has more payoff, right?
Yeah.
But that's all plot related stuff.
I think the only person, again, Boyd Holbrook, who did Kleber, I think he's the only person whose character was like written in a way that made him interesting and he executed it, and it's like cool. I think he could have stayed the same no matter what version of movie you had here.
The two henchmen were kind of like your perfect quintessential Indiana Jones. You have the immovable rock, and then a guy who's just trigger happy, wants to kill everybody.
It's the attitude that he has though as Kleber, where he like shoots him and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I ain't got time for this, come on, man. He's just like very like that's interesting and different, and I want to see more of that.
Yeah,
you know, and
it's not the classic henchman thing of like I'm gonna not shoot at the hero or whatever.
Or he's in the back like like sniggering along.
Right.
It's like he's gonna I'm gonna do evil. It's just like no, they're inconvenient, man. Like we need to move.
He was
forward.
almost like sociopathic. It was like, okay,
Too calm.
we haven't really seen this in an indie movie. Let's get into this. No, okay. You know, like,
okay, fair enough.
So let's move on to the score. Which by John Williams, and this was his final composing that he's done. He is now 100% retired.
okay.
Now
was he retired before this and they brought him out, or was this like he just hadn't officially said he's retired?
I'm not entirely sure on that, but I know that he has stated that this was the last one that he was doing.
Yeah,
that makes me sad. Not just because he's retiring, but also because this is what he's going out on.
Yeah, it's not really the like. That's the thing is like all John Williams music is good.
Yeah,
like I'm not going to say that it like he is not a good composer because he's a phenomenal composer,
possibly one of the best to ever live.
Yeah,
I'll say it.
No, I don't disagree. It's just one of those things where I feel that modern composer. There we go.
I'll say ever. I'll do it.
Calm down.
I'll be brave. Come at me, Mozart fans.
What a take!
Ooh, he's really good.
But yeah, so you have this, and I really feel that Disney has a very heavy hand at telling him what he can and can't like compose for it. Okay. So like, okay, the best way that I can kind of like articulate it is the last time I remember him making a truly original soundtrack that was from an existing franchise that felt different was 2015 Force Awakens.
Like Rey's theme and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like that soundtrack sounds so different than everything else that you know exactly what film it's from. Where I couldn't tell you what any of his tracks are from in this film. Besides, it's just Indiana Jones.
Yeah, but it's a brand new thing. Like I couldn't tell you either, but that's because I haven't listened to memorize the names of them.
I could have told you there are at least 3 tracks in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that I could immediately call out that they were from that film.
They're pretty distinct.
I couldn't do that, but all right.
Yeah. Where this one just doesn't have any distinctness to it.
So I guess I'd have to re-listen to Crystal Skull's soundtrack because none of it stood out to me in Crystal Skull. It's all good, but none of it, like, to me, rung home like...
The Adventures of Mutt. That's one of the big ones.
That's a good
I don't even know how that starts.
I think the issue for me...
We listened to it on the cast.
It didn't stick.
The issue for me is when you go back to, like, say, the prequels, right? Phantom Menace. And, Lucas or whoever sits John Williams down and says like, hey, we're going to have this scene where it's, the Jedi battling the Sith over the fate of how will Anakin turn out as a character, right? Duel the fates, right?
And then John Williams sits them down.
John Williams like lights the piano on fire and just goes to town,
he
right?
just pours gasoline on it. Let's go, baby.
He looks back, he goes, you might want to leave because it's going to get wet and wild in here.
For this one, it was almost like, he and Mangold sat down and Mangold's like, well, it's like
Indiana Jones.
And he was like, oh, okay, well, I can do that.
I'm out of lighter fluid. Let's see.
There were no moments where it was like, this is going to happen and it's going to be this big sequence. And John Williams over there like taking notes like, oh, yeah, I can crank this one out. There were no moments in a film for it that he could really score to where it's like big turn, big emotion, big whatever that he could really get fired up for. And I felt like that really showed where it's like, is it Indiana Jones? Yes. Is it amazing, over the top, no, not really. It just kind of is. It's the score. It's maybe the best part of the film.
It definitely is the best part of the film.
That's not saying a whole lot because most of the film's pretty, again, flatlined.
To me, there were multiple scenes where I was watching the movie and I was like kind of bored, but I was like, man, this music, all right.
Yeah, the music's good.
I was like listening to it going like, okay.
The tuk-tuk chase that we had playing over the background during the ad break it's a great track.
Yeah.
It is very reminiscent of Indiana Jones. It's in an Indiana Jones film. That's exactly what you're asking for. But it's just one of those things where like, even though I like, just because we just did a recency bias, we know that is what it's from.
Yeah.
If I listened to that on my soundtrack just during the week, I'd be like, what part of Raiders of the Lost Ark is this in? Like that's kind of like where my mind goes for it. Where like if I listen to, I'll say like Ray's theme, I'm like Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say there's tracks on, Last Crusade that sound like they could have been on other. Oh yeah. No. There's definitely 2 or 3 that are definitely like just, they don't sound like.
No, granted, I mean, I've listened to these for, over 2 decades now at this point.
Sure.
Where
that presents a level of bias.
It does, yeah. But that's the thing is like I can definitely call out specific like this is a Raiders track, this is a Last Crusade track, this is Temple of Doom, whatever.
Right.
But that's just one of those things where it's like they do actually have unique kind of bits in there, and there were a lot of callbacks that he used in this soundtrack that were very reminiscent of Last Crusade.
Right.
There was a lot of, particularly because of the Germans. So anytime the Germans would be
I was going to say the Germans when they appeared.
There's a lot of leitmotifs that came back, particularly from the tank chase in Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, that's the thing is, like, the soundtrack is good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that the soundtrack is bad. I'm just saying that there's not enough there for it to feel like it's a whole new soundtrack.
Well, it kind of feels like this is a composer who's either retired or retiring, making, one last hurrah, but he didn't really have the whole, like, I'm going to ride off in the sunset with a bang attitude to it. You know what I mean?
Probably
like
because I just don't think they gave him enough leeway because of how critically the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was received, that I think that they felt that even though it made a ton of money,
Disney really tightened the screws on this.
Yeah, we really needed to be a true success. We needed to go back to form, and they still didn't. But because of that, they really just tight-fisted a lot of the production part of it to where he couldn't get creative with it.
Well, I wonder too, like with Williams, if he likes to score to the finished or to see like the scenes, because a lot of composers do that, and I'm sure it goes back and forth on depending on the film. But like maybe they didn't have a lot of scenes finished because they were all previs, because most of them were CG, and so that's a difference than seeing an actual cut and trying to score to it and stuff.
Yeah, because I definitely feel that there's a lot of, particularly in the older films, like you have good punctuation because he scored it to the actual film, where this is like, well, we're gonna have this, and this in here, but we don't have it done yet, so you can't really see anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I don't know. We're postulating on what could have happened. Yeah,
this is complete speculation.
Yeah, and I haven't listened to the soundtrack by itself since I watched the movie. I haven't had time Friday. Yeah, so I can't sit here and be like it's a perfect soundtrack. Right? I'm not trying to like do that, but I will say that I definitely at multiple points in the movie was like, ooh, the song.
Yeah, no, I mean, like again, the music's still great.
Music.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's move on to the plot, which is
buckle up.
Something.
It's everywhere and nowhere all at once.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull out 3 things that I found very hilarious.
Okay.
So when they're going through the ear of Dionysus or whatever in the cave, and they go through the little
ear of Dionysus. Yeah,
yeah, they go through the little tunnel that has all the bugs. Which, obviously call back to Temple of Doom. Sure, that's fine.
Whatever. Yeah.
Then Germans come through, no bugs on them, no problem.
Well, they scared all the bugs away.
Yeah. Then whenever they break the bridge with Teddy trying to basically save himself, he goes into the river and then kills the dude.
The big dude.
And then whenever they're going back, bridge is still there, totally fine. They just walk right over it.
I didn't even catch that. Yeah, they walk over the same bridge?
The whole area, it felt like, hey, there's one path here. You can only take one path. And then Teddy's just like, hey, there's a whole other route back here you can take and go wherever you want. And it was like, what?
Yeah. Well, so then the other thing is the bad guys were using Mach 11 submachine guns during the 60s. Those weren't even made until 1972.
Oh, like the Uzis?
Yeah.
I was wondering about that because that one dude held one up and I was like, I don't know enough about the history of the Uzi, but I feel like we would have been using them in the 60s if they had them in the 60s.
1970s was when they were made.
Okay.
And then...
So it's like, this is like the prototype version that he got a hold of somehow.
I guess, yeah.
If they just had I just made a new gun. We're using it real quick.
So the biggest issue, and I can't remember what we reviewed, but I also brought this up then, where when you have these historical things that have existed for thousands of years, the longer that you go through in modern time, so we'll say 1930s to 1960, which is when this is. Yeah. The higher chance that this stuff is going to already have been discovered, because these people have technology, they can go through, they can go and explore, that have been here for thousands of years, right?
Are you talking about artifacts and stuff?
Yeah. So you have this, I guess, seemingly very short climb for them to go in this cave.
Yeah, and then the guns were meant to be Mach 10s.
It said, I don't know, it said Mach 11, but anyway.
You were looking them up? Yeah. Okay.
When was the Mach 10 made?
64.
Yeah.
That's why I was going to lean for it was the predecessor, so it would have been out.
Yeah.
Either way.
Gotcha. But so we had this incredibly short climb for, two people that are not, physically prime, right?
Sure.
And they can just climb right up and then they're just walking, right?
Yeah.
So then has no one else that has ever been in this cave?
No one else made it through the bug tunnel.
But but yeah, so there's these questions that the longer this exists, especially when there's tourism involved, no one has tried to climb up this at all ever.
Yeah.
And then because it seemed like a very easy way to just get to the tomb of Archimedes.
Well, because at least with Last Crusade, it's out in the middle of
nowhere. It's
terrible desert.
Unknown. You have a map to get there, but you have to know the starting city, and no one knows the starting city.
Right.
Also with this, when they do the dive, right? And it's the sponge diver found this item in a wrecked Roman boat.
Yeah.
And then the other part of the boat is off the shelf. It's y'all have had the technology to get down to this.
Yeah.
And we know, other people know where this was found. So why have other people not, why have we already not been down to this site?
So I was waiting because, he said, basically don't go under for more than 3 minutes and you'll kind of avoid the
waiting
bends.
for that to be a thing.
I was like, okay, that's why no one has gone down far enough right here. They're about to go past 3 minutes to get to what this is, and then how are they going to get out of that? No.
They just go down and
just
then
Nazis.
They get the one thing.
The one thing. Yeah, I was like, oh man, how are they going to find? Oh, it's just that big box. It looks exactly like an artifact that's right in the middle that the skeleton's holding.
Well, so I thought that they were. The other thing is there's also questions of how did the Germans know that was the location in the Adriatic Sea that they would be at without knowing where they'd be at.
There's some plot conveniences there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to knock on it too much, but
no,
those are my first initial thoughts. I
was going to dial it more into characterizations of people. So we've already had Han Solo as a grumpy bad father who regrets how he wasn't a good father. Now we've got grumpy Indiana Jones as a bad father who regrets how he was as a father.
So I have something on that. Okay. Well, not really trivia, but okay. So Crystal Skull takes place in 1957.
Right.
Okay.
Mutt was 19 in that film, as a character.
Okay.
Okay. So clearly, he goes into the military at some point.
Yeah.
And the military doesn't recruit people, or Army doesn't recruit people until
for the Vietnam War.
Yeah, for the Vietnam War. 1965 is when the U.S. entered the Vietnam War.
Right.
So the draft would have been 66? Or did we do the draft immediately?
Well, so he volunteered.
Okay, so he could have volunteered as early as 65.
Which was, he would have been 27.
Okay.
At that point to enter.
It's getting up there.
It's getting up there. Like 35 is the cutoff for the Army.
Potentially not uncommon for someone to sign up.
Not terribly uncommon. But
also, it's also possible that he signed up a year or two before.
Like during the Korean War, maybe. Korean War's already done.
But like he had already signed up just as a way to get out, and the war broke out. Well, he's one of the first ones sent over because he's already trained
there.
and everything.
Yeah.
So that basically early 20s, mid 20s is when he would have signed up and gone over to Vietnam War.
I wasn't too worried about that one.
No, I don't think that's not a plot problem. I just wanted to get the timeline down because I was like, well, when did we enter the Vietnam War? Because
I had the same thing.
60s.
Because I was like, wait, would he have gone to the Korean War and died? Because I was like, he was a teenager. Yeah. My thing is more of his whole character from Crystal Skull was kind of like counterculture. Yeah. I'm not part of your system, old man. Kind of type thing.
Enlist.
Not the dude that I would peg to be like, oh, this guy's enlisting.
Well, I mean, because Indiana Jones does state that he did it to basically get at him, at Indiana Jones.
Yeah, which is another what?
Yeah,
that's an extreme measure to get back at your dad.
Yeah,
just do your hair weird.
Get a tattoo.
Yeah,
but so that's kind of that was just
that
passing thoughts mostly. I just did the math beforehand.
The thing that I expected that never really happened, right, was what's our turn for Helena as a character? When does she turn from being the scoundrel to being...
Never.
Whether it's going to be...
I guess when she punched him at the end.
I care for Indiana, or, I just want to get back with the Nazis, right?
Yeah.
And I thought when they introduced Teddy, I was like, oh, they're going to kill this kid. Like, that's a bold move, and that's going to get her more on board. And it just kind of... No, didn't happen.
Yeah.
She just kind of changed her mind at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was weird. Like, they needed...
There was
a missing character beat there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happened, and the bit where basically Antonio Banderas' character dies, and then they're on the boat, and she's all happy, and he's
that was at least a good play where she reveals the dynamite and whatever else. Which, man, that boat's tough. They just threw a stick of dynamite in the middle of that boat.
Didn't sink.
No kidding. I was like, man, Antonio Banderas' boat is steel reinforced.
Like a rock, man.
Yeah. But at least in the boat, like what you're saying, there's this moment of my friend just died, and he's tearing up. That's where I feel like the plot did an okay job for Harrison Ford to give him moments talking about Mutt enlisting, even though it didn't make a lot of sense to me, that Mutt would do that.
But it gives them an excuse to
that's
emote.
The thing.
Yeah.
What bothers me, though, is that they take those kind of emotional things that, a lot of people didn't like Crystal Skull. They didn't like Mutt as a character, whatever. But those are still emotional character beats that you can utilize as a narrative tool, and they just didn't do anything with it. It was talked about in passing. It just was something that was so inconsequential to people like the audience that have been here for 4 films at this point. And it's just even if you didn't like it, that's fine. But you can use that as emotional terrorism
it could have at least
give you something
about the emotional C4 on me.
Yeah, his son could have come up a couple times until finally the scene on the boat. You know what I mean? That's the reveal. Instead, they just don't do anything with it. The other overall plot, not issue, but just low-hanging fruit that they didn't really do enough with was the 60s, the time setting, right? You have the parade.
69 too.
Or 69, you have the parade, and then everyone's wearing 60s clothing.
Yeah.
But really, other than him yelling at some neighbors to turn down the Beatles song, there wasn't a lot that happened because it's the 60s.
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting for it to I was expecting it to hinge a little more on the time period of okay, what does an archaeological adventure look like in the 60s versus,
the 1930s,
the 30s or 40s, you know? To your point, maybe they get there and of course someone's found it because tourism, and now they have to figure out okay, where did they go with this other dial?
Some tourists walked off with it. Put it in my pocket.
Or something, I don't know, that's kind of a cheesy one, but something that makes it justifiable. Because I love the dynamic of Indiana Jones is retiring as a professor. No one cares about archaeology because we just went to the moon, right?
Yeah.
You know, like that whole like you're a dinosaur, you're unnecessary. They didn't even really play into that enough to me. Like that could have been a theme.
On the future, old man, not 2000 BC.
Yeah, you know, like that in his class, people are like bored, and then they're all excited because the astronauts are back.
I liked that flip because when we go back to the original trilogy, right? You know, his classroom is basically just a bunch of women staring at him because it's Harrison Ford in his prime, who wouldn't be, you know.
Yeah. You should see me de-aged is what he should have said.
The other thing that got me for some of the plot was just the fact that whenever they go through the time butthole, and
I hate that we're calling it, but I love it.
It looks like a butthole.
When they go through that, no one shoots at Teddy's. No one tries to take down Teddy's plane.
That was a whole other problem of just like, guys, just pull up a little.
Yeah.
Like they only reach so high. There's nothing that obligates you to be this low.
Yeah, beyond just, wow, look at all the Roman soldiers. I wonder what time period
Let's get a close look at them.
I will say I did like the actual plot contrivance of, he didn't know about continental drift.
That was fine.
I thought, I actually liked that just because you need to have some kind of answer to like why it's incorrect, and I think that's actually a pretty fantastic.
Okay, so let's back this up, right?
Sure.
So our main villain is a physicist.
Correct.
He helped put men on the moon.
He's basically von Braun, Bizarro.
Yeah. So
Bizarro Braun.
Would he
Bizarro
not
Braun.
question? We all boarded a plane to fly up to this butthole in the sky to time travel. Would he not question, how does Archimedes reach this butthole in the sky if he wants to time travel?
No, because at that point, like, he just has to assume that, that he just figured it out.
But also, actual question, if he actually time travels, how does he get up there to time travel?
Well, no, but see, that's the thing, though. The whole bit at the end where he has the watch. No, well, he has the watch. Because
of the time travel.
Because of the time travel.
Well, and they kind of made that point like, it was really a way to return, not a way to travel. But at the same time, again, I expected them to like go into a cave or whatever else, and that would be where it is. Because that would make way more sense for what can Archimedes reach on foot.
Well, they didn't really
develop a Da Vinci and get in the air.
They didn't really explain either that so this time fissure, does it pop up once every 20 years? Is it always present?
No, they did talk about that.
What did they say?
They had a specific date.
They had specific date that was like 3 days from now or whatever.
In his diary about August 20th.
1969, then August 20th,
August
right
20th,
before.
39. Yeah,
okay.
Up 30
I missed
years
that part.
or whatever.
Yeah.
They did at least a little bit with that, where it was like, obviously there's some kind of schedule or something.
I was sitting there going like, how do they know when the time butthole appears?
They that was specifically like they actually did call that out.
But it was in his notes?
Yes, it was in
Baz's, not Baz.
No, Shaw.
Shaw.
It was in Shaw's notes.
Okay, and Voller knew about it.
Presumably?
Because that's my thing is like, were they racing to it because they were running out of time?
That's the thing. It's very convoluted in the sense of like, we don't really know any kind of urgency here. It just kind of happens. And we're just like, well, I guess we're going through time now.
So from a plot standpoint, that was to me the weakness of like, I didn't understand the stakes of like, this thing's closing, we got to hurry, or like, it's going to appear somewhere else on Earth in like 5 minutes, or it's just here.
They never
we
really
found it. We're good.
Established. For as much as this film really felt like they kind of wanted to be like, we're going to do the science film.
Yeah.
Like we've done aliens, we've done religious things, we're going to do the science film.
Mathematics.
They never really sat down and explained to us the constraints and how the systems function well enough for us to look at something and be like, that can be a problem for our characters, or they're going to need to solve this. They never really gave us enough background information for the viewer to be like, tense about this moment, or they're not in the right place, or like that kind of thing. They just didn't give us enough.
Well, so the other issue that I have with this, and that's the thing, is like, it was really weird because I didn't mind aliens in the Crystal Skull. I didn't mind time travel in this.
Congratulations, there's dozens of you.
Well, no, that's fine. but that's the thing, though. Both of these films go against the style of
the original
fantastical mysticism that the other three had, where it's like there was always a way that you could kind of explain it in a sense of like, well, this would possibly be what it is, instead of like, we just time traveled.
Well, so they also kind of did like the the Rian Johnson subversion of expectations, where they start you out with the spear of Longinus.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like this is, again, Christianity-related item. We're going to have some kind of magical effect. The Fuhrer is looking for it, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, no, it's just a replica that was made in the last 50 years. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
What are we actually doing here, guy?
Well, I think the way they did that, though, was good because he's like, actually, this thing is the artifact we should be worried about. And they're like, I'm not going back to the Fuhrer and telling him that.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that interaction, like, have you ever spoken to Hitler?
Right.
Cracked me up pretty good.
Dude's not cool.
Like, he's not going to accept this as an answer.
So for me, the time travel was almost as big of a jump as the aliens, and it bummed me out. Yeah.
Interesting.
Not quite as bad.
It didn't bother me.
See, to me. So let me get it out. Okay. To me, if this was done,
do we need to move into entertainment at this point?
No.
We're still heavily in plot, Steven. Calm down,
Get
Turbo.
outta here.
Okay. To me, it's like if this had happened similarly in an older Indiana Jones film, like one of the first three, what would have happened is Archimedes, I can't remember that way they pronounce the name of the thing.
The Antikythera.
Yeah.
Would have pointed to a place. It would have been like a cave, something Archimedes could have reached. They would have gotten there, narrowly stopped the Nazis, and it would have been like a doorway or like a tear.
And like you see Archimedes through the tear,
You
and
can
then the
see
doorway
through
closes.
it, and Indy wants to go in, and
Yes.
she's like, no. You will alter history. You will
Yeah.
change the past. You cannot
Yes.
do that. And it would have been very much like the Grail of Let It Go, Indiana,
Yeah.
type thing. And then he wouldn't have. Instead, we flew through a butthole in the sky into the past, wrecked a plane. No one's found that. That didn't alter time, I guess.
They like dug up Nazi insignia out of the wreckage of Syracuse. Be like, what the?
Right. And so like all the stuff that starts happening where he's like shooting Romans with machine guns and stuff. And I'm like, this is altering time. And then like, on the tomb of Archimedes, it's got the birds with the propellers and stuff. And I'm like, so wait.
This is always meant to happen.
Always meant to happen.
Yeah.
So then when he was trying to stay, I was like, I don't know. Like,
does he just stay?
Does he just stay?
Yeah.
Because I guess it's already happened because the tomb. So anyway, for me, it was too much.
It would have been cool if they'd done what you were saying, where it's like, there's the doorway. They have the big fight with the big showdown with the Nazis. Indy wins, right? And he wants to go through, and he's held back. You can't do this. You're going to alter time. And we see Archimedes. So we've already revealed, like, let's say Archimedes' tomb with the watch and the propellers.
Yeah.
And let's just say this takes place. Maybe Archimedes is buried where the fissure is, right? This takes place where we can see the tomb. So the fissure closes. He's altered the timeline. Like we see, like the watch just kind of disappear into motes off of the skeleton of Archimedes, and the bird loses its propeller. Like we've altered time now.
Yes.
We prevented the Nazis from going back in time and altering timelines. So now that we've done this, it alters the way his tomb is to where it should have been.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like that could have been cool, and that's got a little quasi mysticism feel to it. You could have had that little soft Williams like horns and strings playing as the watch disappears into the ether or whatever. So I could have gone for that. I think once, like, I didn't actually hate the whole sequence of them being in the past.
No.
Like with the siege happening, all the boat. I thought that was actually kind of cool. It's kind of like, man, I kind of want a movie just about like the siege of Syracuse or something. Like let's put this on the screen, right?
Yeah.
But it did feel kind of whiplash in terms of like what I expect from Indiana Jones.
Yeah. So the other thing is too, you didn't really get any kind of like horrific deaths in this. Like you
Yeah, like at the end of like Raiders,
end of Raiders, end of Last Crusade, dude getting eaten by alligators or crocodiles, technically.
Either way, or like the ants and Crystal
you didn't
Skull.
get any of that here. Maybe that's just a Spielberg thing.
Maybe it's the underwater locking the dude, but like it's still not this. Like that's a terrible way to go, but you don't watch it. You don't see it happen.
I mean, maybe it's a Disney thing.
I mean,
that's
be
possible. Yeah, They really wanted to lean on this. Hey, like we want this to be like kid friendly.
Yeah, but it's just kind of
or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, but that was definitely one of the other pieces in there that I was just going.
Kind of a classic Indiana Jones moment where you got to have some kind of horrible
body horror.
Someone needs to get their comeuppance because of hubris.
Yeah, because like the way that all the Germans die was just kind of like, well, they crashed in a plane.
That was it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, we had the one dude fall out the Bombay doors, but it was like, okay,
but it's
whatever.
just a normal German. Like he's not a main character.
Yeah,
right.
And
that's true. Yeah, I mean, we got to see whatever his name was. Mickelson character, like dead, like burned and dead on the ground. But it wasn't.
Fine. Yeah, like I want to see like one of the trebuchets just like go right through him or something.
Yeah, I want to see or ballista or whatever.
Yeah,
not trebuchet.
Oh no, they had trebuchets there,
guys.
Or you could have like you could have the Sicilians,
the big spiky thing.
It's a ballista.
But yeah, no, you could have them like burn them, like with the
with Greek fire,
with the Greek fire. Yeah, that would have been good. But whatever. All right, so let's move on to entertainment.
Yeah,
like there's probably so much more stuff that we've missed in plot, but they probably also missed it too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like the plot was... Yeah. It was fine. It was kind of a mess. I didn't hate the time travel stuff. It just didn't feel right to me. It felt like too much. Again, same with Crystal Skull. Like,
I felt like most too on the nose.
Yeah, it's too much. Like Indiana Jones usually keeps it somewhat,
based in reality.
Yeah.
So I think probably my favorite part was just during the train sequence whenever they blow up the heavy gun turret for AA.
Oh yeah,
and then it just keeps shooting firing while they're on the turn
around the curve.
Yeah,
so I really wanted, because I like that whole sequence, right, when he's like Shaw's like waving, like yelling at the planes, and Indy's like, they can't hear you.
Yeah,
and then the AA gets blown up. I really wanted him to be like, go 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 go, and they like duck under the fire, and then he gets in there and twists it a little to be able to clear the track. Because it happening just as luck is one thing, but if Indy gets in there and again you have an option, you're as he like wrenches the controls over and clears the rest of the, because there's no way they get out otherwise, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably too much movement for a de-aged Harrison Ford.
Probably
that, and probably Disney, like, we don't want Harrison Ford to be directly responsible for murdering a ton of people.
I don't know. Murdering Nazis is probably fine.
Honestly, also true. Like, yeah, like, is it people? Sure, but it's also Nazis.
But there is a different tone between like the gun is taking him out and Harrison Ford is like Rocky in like that one Rambo movie where he's the older.
Say hello to my little friend.
Yeah. I wasn't very entertained in this movie.
Yeah, like honestly, the intro was about as good as it got. I liked
there were moments
chase for the most part, but it just kind of kept going.
I liked when she's like got him in the stacks or whatever, and they're like slowly creeping in on him, and they're like, get him, and he like kicks the whole, like they don't realize they're messing with Indiana Jones. I think he's just some old dude. He kicks all the stacks. The white guy like, he like gets pinned.
Oh, that does remind me. The CIA, like I just didn't understand. Like, I mean, I understand why the CIA was like, it's like trying to help Volin.
She's like Von Braun's handler.
Yeah, but it was just really weird because like these two dudes just murdered people in cold blood, and you're just not going to do anything about it.
She kept like scolding them for shooting people. It's like, you're also watching these people just kill people.
But then not doing anything.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the other shoe to drop on that. Of like, oh, they were here on a CIA mission to do something.
Yeah.
And now that they've broke from the CIA, they're going to be a factor in the back third.
The CIA now wants a peace and is coming after. Like you blew off your appointment with the president. All this other stuff. Your goons are murdering people. It's not going to fly. And
it didn't go anywhere. Yeah. And but like as a CIA officer who is hypothetically good person, you just watch these two dudes just murder civilians in cold blood, and you're just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you just kind of like
shoot them.
Whatever.
Yeah. Like, anyways.
Yeah, there needed to be more of that. Like, it felt very convoluted, but also then they, like, streamlined it. It was like, no, you set this up. Play it out.
Yeah. But, I mean, beyond the opening sequence, like, everything else was, like,
whatever.
It's here. Yeah. I was really excited when Antonio Banderas was on there. I'm like, and then he's dead.
And then we had a really dumb underwater sequence.
Another thing with him is, like, we didn't get to care for him enough to really be super sad when he died.
If he had been like, I've got a friend, and they pull someone up, and you're like, I remember them from.
Well, it could be Katanga from the from Raiders, the big cargo ship that he was on.
Yeah,
I was like, this is it. Nope. Totally someone else. Okay, I don't know who that is.
The guy from Raiders at the start who has the plane.
Yeah.
The seaplane, right? I expected that. I expected somebody from one of the past movies, and maybe it's not the same actor, but we at least recognize it as that character.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't happen. It was like, that's my good friend. Like the good friend that nobody's ever met.
No one's ever met.
That's always the tough part when you're introducing these new characters into a franchise like this, where you're just like, okay, well, who's this guy? Do we know him or do we not know him?
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I would have loved it more too if he had like really talked this dude up to her like a lot, and then they get there and he's got the cane and he's like, oh, and like last time Indy worked with him was like 30 years ago or something.
I like how he was like, yeah, he's got a big, beautiful boat. They pull up and it looks like Forrest Gump shrimp
just a heap. Yeah. But yeah, I think this movie was mildly entertaining.
This is a super hot take. I think Crystal Skull is a better film.
God, I mean, it's so hard to say that, but also I don't disagree.
I don't know that you're wrong. Like that's the problem is like
because it has high points.
I really like it's one of those things too where it's like I went in with no expectations. I didn't expect it to be better than Crystal Skull. I expected it to be an Indiana Jones film, and it didn't really even feel like that.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with it is it never felt like an Indiana Jones film. Like I wanted. And again, Harrison Ford's 80, 81 when this film's being made. I wanted, the bullwhip to come out, and he makes like a swing across and like looks back, like that's how we did it in the 30s. Or so, give me something, come on.
Well, I do appreciate that they made, Indy move like an older Indy. Like they didn't have him doing. He is
older, yeah.
Yeah, like that. To me, a lot of his movements felt like realistic.
Like
an
80-year-old
They didn't try to just like.
But like, if we had gotten kind of like a Lethal Weapon. Where he's like, I'm getting too old for this. I would have been totally fine with that.
So my take is that Crystal Skull is a worse movie, but I'm more likely to rewatch
it's more entertaining.
It's more, that's the thing is like not. It is like that's not me saying that Crystal Skull is a good film. It is a bad film.
It is not a good film. Yeah,
but it is more entertaining than this film was, which is really sad because
sad,
like it's not a good film.
No.
Yeah. Woof.
Yeah.
What a state of.
I'm sorry.
No. Yeah.
I really try and be the ray of sunshine for this cast sometimes, and I just can't do it with this one.
No.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I think I don't know if I said it in this recording or if I said it just to y'all before we got started, but like I think my wife leaned over a couple of times during the movie just to make sure I was still awake.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. So I was in between, so there was a couple that we didn't know that was next to us, and then all four of us, Holly's parents, and then me and Holly, and 3 out of 6 people in that section fell asleep during the film.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not what's supposed to happen in an Indiana Jones film. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like if that's just any kind of indicator, like it just wasn't. I don't know.
It just never. Like the opening was good, and it felt like okay, we're kind of there. We're not quite, but we're kind of there, and then it just never grabbed.
Yeah.
And ran with you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm sorry. Like, I really don't want to be a downer, but like, I just
depressing moment.
I just really didn't find it.
No. It's that sad song from Peanuts starts playing.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I don't want to hound on it too long. Steven, did you have anything beyond just the opening section?
I think we're good there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so on that really sad note, we are reaching the end of our cast, and now it is time for us to talk about the $1 that you can support the show with right now.
Yeah, if you like what you heard so far, if you want to help support the show, make us feel less sad about what we just watched, you can support the show for as low as $1
You can cheer us up for the low price of $1 a month.
And what that'll get you is it gets you access to all of our bonus episodes where we kind of change it up. We do some different stuff. We do, tier rating lists. We do like intro to Gundam or intro to anime, all kinds of different stuff, different format, different feel from the normal show.
Yeah.
As well as we've been talking about Crystal Skull. We have commentaries out there.
We do. You can go watch the Crystal Skull with us.
Yes.
Via the magic of the internet.
Virtually.
as we do Mystery Science Theater 3000 style.
You download the commentary, you sync it up with your movie, you play it. It's like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
And
it's a lot of fun.
That was the first time that Steve had ever seen Crystal Skull as well.
Yeah, so you can hear him experience it in media res.
How do they work?
Yeah. And, we have our Patreon Picks polls, which is basically you get to vote as a supporter of the show of what we're going to review. This upcoming one is going to be The Rock from the Nicolas Cage movie.
Not
with the actual and Sean Connery.
Yeah, the Michael Bay film The Rock.
Yes.
So and again, anyone at the $1 tier and above can vote on those Patreon Picks polls, and patrons get early access to those, and eventually they hit the main feed.
Yep.
So keep an eye out whenever our next one goes up if you want to steer the course of this show.
Dictate.
So if you don't want to support us on Patreon, that's totally okay.
Yeah.
We would love for you to share us, toss us a review on iTunes, Spotify, whatever. Share it with a friend. Honestly, like that is the easiest way for us to get just more views and up higher on the search lists and everything is just having traffic.
Yeah, taking just a minute out of your day to leave us a rating on, again, iTunes, Spotify, whatever podcast platform you listen to, it makes a huge difference for us, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yep. So that does sound like all the time we have this week, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.